And this is not Marvel, mind you, this is like this Disney. I told him to go fly a kite.
Let me just say this, like every other Marvel movie, it doesn't end well for the superheroes.
The actors who built Marvel's empire just walked out, sent Disney a recorded warning, and signed a $120 million deal with Disney's biggest rival, Amazon. And in the final seconds of the video that Disney never intended to leak, one of the Avengers name drops a top Marvel executive and accuses him of betrayal. The Avengers turn on Disney, the video that started it all. Disney never saw this coming. The Avengers actors, yes, the very faces of Marvel's golden era, have just sent Disney a message so bold, so raw, and so unapologetically personal that insiders are calling it a declaration of war. But that's only half the story. Because what came next? A reported $120 million mega deal with Disney's streaming rival Amazon. And we're not talking about some small indie side project. This is a full-on, fully funded ensemble series, spearheaded by some of Marvel's biggest names. Jeremy Renner, Elizabeth Olsen, and even Chris Evans reportedly circling. They're not just acting, they're executive producing, they're shaping the narrative, and above all, they're owning their stories, without Mickey Mouse pulling the strings. And the part that will really rattle you?
Why? Did you think I'm only half the Jeremy because I got ran over?
The most damning accusations against Disney, some of which you're about to hear from the mouths of the stars themselves, aren't just about bad contracts or pay cuts. We're talking abuse, neglect, control tactics, psychological manipulation, and yes, even rumors of silencing. Jeremy Renner was supposed to stay quiet. Instead, he pulled back the curtain and showed us what it's really like when the most bankable star in your franchise refuses to be played. We all remember the headlines. Renner crushed by a 14,000-pound snowplow, nearly dying in front of his family. Months of rehab, a body barely stitched together, and a studio that couldn't even offer the same pay he got before he risked his life.
I thought I was quite the burden. I thought I ruined New Year's. I thought I disappointed all the kids. I was supposed to take skiing that day. I failed on a lot of promises. These aren't characteristics that I typically do.
The accident happened on New Year's Day, 2023. Renner was helping his adult nephew when the massive piston bully snowcat rolled over him, crushing his torso and leaving him with more than 30 broken bones. For weeks, he was fighting for his life in the ICU. His family wasn't sure he'd ever walk again, let alone return to action films. But here's what the headlines didn't tell you. Disney's radio silence during his recovery. While fans worldwide sent prayers and support, while his Marvel co-stars publicly rallied around him, Disney's official response was minimal. A brief statement wishing him well. No personal calls from executives. No flowers. No, take all the time you need. Just silence. And then months later, when Renner was finally strong enough to discuss future projects, Disney came calling. Not with support, not with loyalty, with an insult. Why? Because, quote, maybe they thought I was only half the Jeremy.
Why? Did you think I'm only half the Jeremy because I got ran over?
That wasn't just a quip. That was a man confronting the corporate machine that tried to lowball his worth after using his face, his image, and his real-life trauma to promote Hawkeye Season 1. Disney had literally used footage of Renner's emotional recovery journey in promotional materials for the show's success, marketing his real pain as part of their brand story. Renner later confirmed in another interview that it wasn't Marvel itself that tried to slash his salary. It was Disney, or rather, as he put it, not even really Disney, just the penny pinchers, the accountants.
And this is not Marvel, mind you, this is like this Disney. Not even really Disney, it's just the penny pinchers, the accountants.
But the real story goes deeper than just one negotiation gone wrong. You think that's shocking? You haven't heard Jeremy Renner's explosive account of being offered half his original paycheck for the second season of Hawkeye? Not Marvel, mind you. Disney's penny-pinching suits.
They asked me to do a season 2, and they offered me half the money. I'm like, wow, it's gonna take me twice the amount of work for half the amount of money. I told him to go fly a kite.
The meeting, according to sources close to Renner, was conducted over Zoom. He was still using a wheelchair part-time, still doing physical therapy, still rebuilding his life piece by piece. And Disney's opening offer? Half his Season 1 salary. Their reasoning, according to someone familiar with the call, was that the show had already established the character, and that streaming series typically see budget reductions in later seasons. Translation: we don't need you as much as you need us. They were wrong. Renner's response was immediate and unforgettable. I told them to go fly a kite. But here's what Disney's bean counters didn't expect. Renner had spent his recovery months doing more than just physical therapy. He'd been making calls, reaching out to old friends, and quietly, very quietly, building something new.
It wasn't to get better for me, it was to get better to heal them. The better I got physically, mentally, emotionally, the better they got. They were less relieved, they're more relieved. I'm the one that was dealing with the pain and the anguish, but that's nothing. That was the easy part. They were the ones that were their hands tied.
During those long months of recovery, Renner wasn't just healing his body, he was healing relationships that Disney's machine had damaged.
But when you are idealized, you realize, oh, it's not an obligation, but it's just, I mean, we've all experienced it. You kind of get to go, oh, all right. You get to stand up inside yourself and kind of try to live a bit of an example. And so it's really put me in check because I hate disappointing youth.
Sources close to the actor revealed that he spent hours on the phone with former Marvel co-stars, many of whom had their own horror stories about post-Endgame treatment. Chris Evans, who'd felt increasingly isolated after completing his Captain America arc. Scarlett Johansson, still bitter from her legal battle. Elizabeth Olsen, frustrated by what she saw as Marvel's inability to develop her character beyond trauma and tragedy. One source described these calls as therapy sessions disguised as catch-ups. Another said Renner became the unofficial counselor for Marvel alumni.
All the Avengers died.
Cut the cameras.
Oh, man.
Or when actors started showing their frustration with the corporate control over their every word.
Wait till you see this next one. Everybody died.
Dude.
I will beat you the f up.
And Renner's rebellion? It was just the beginning of something much bigger. The conversations weren't planned as business meetings. They were friends checking on a friend. But as the stories poured out, stories of disrespect, lowball offers, creative stifling, and corporate indifference, a pattern emerged. Disney had a problem with loyalty.
They wanted to shelve it. I told them to go fly a kite. I worked too dang hard on this show. We're gonna do it, and I'm gonna walk that damn carpet. Mark my words.
The turning point came during a three-way call between Renner, Evans, and Johansson in late spring 2023. According to someone who was briefed on the conversation, Evans mentioned that he'd been approached about a small Marvel cameo, essentially a glorified face-in-the-crowd appearance, for a fraction of his previous rate. And Renner, still bitter from his own lowball experience, said something that would eventually become their unofficial motto: maybe it's time we tested how high we could fly. That phone call, according to multiple sources, was when they started talking less about Disney's problems and more about their own solutions. But here's the twist. That confrontation didn't end Renner's career. It may have saved it. According to insiders close to the project, Jeremy wasn't the only one feeling the pressure. A source familiar with the negotiations claimed that a number of ex-Marvel stars had already been meeting in private, quietly assembling the early framework of a rival project, and Amazon came calling fast. Within weeks of Renner's fly a kite response to Disney, he was taking meetings with Amazon Studios executives, not as a supplicant looking for work, but as a creative partner with ideas, connections, and most importantly, leverage. Amazon's pitch was simple. What if you owned your story instead of renting it? A top Hollywood insider confirmed to The Hollywood Reporter that multiple actors had become disillusioned with the way Disney handled post-pandemic contracts, some even referring to Disney's tactics as predatory. And here's where it gets wild. The very moment Disney tried to underpay Renner, he already had something else lined up, something big. We're talking about a $120 million streaming deal with Amazon, where, according to two separate sources, Renner would star in a dramatic limited series based loosely on his real-life recovery, executive produced by himself and with full creative control. But the Amazon deal was bigger than just one show. The contract, according to entertainment lawyer sources, included options for additional projects, a production company partnership, and most remarkably, a clause allowing Renner to bring other talent into the Amazon ecosystem. In other words, Amazon wasn't just buying Jeremy Renner. They were buying his entire network of disgruntled Marvel alumni. He's not alone. This Amazon deal isn't just about better pay or more freedom. It's about reclaiming power in an industry where stars, even superheroes, are treated as disposable. But this goes way deeper than just one actor and one insult offer. This is a pattern of squeezing, exploiting, and discarding the very talent that built empires. And Renner's rebellion? It was just the beginning of something much bigger. The entertainment industry was about to witness something unprecedented. The first organized talent exodus from a major studio franchise. And it all started with a man in a wheelchair telling Disney to go fly a kite. Leaked footage, broken contracts, and the secret Hollywood meeting. What Jeremy Renner experienced wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a systematic approach to controlling talent that stretches back decades, and the evidence is chilling. But to understand how Disney treats its biggest stars, you have to understand how they built their empire, on the backs of children who had no choice. Disney's talent machine doesn't start with adults, it starts with kids. And what it does to those kids, the control, the manipulation, the psychological damage, creates a blueprint that follows them into adulthood. Take this haunting moment from Demi Lovato, talking about the time Disney's handlers physically barricaded her in a hotel room to prevent her from ordering food.
One time I said, I'm throwing up blood. I need to go to treatment. I need to get help. They didn't let me have phones in my hotel rooms because They didn't want me to call room service.
Think about that for a moment. A teenage girl showing signs of serious medical distress, denied access to basic communication because Disney was more concerned about her food intake than her health. But it gets worse.
One time I said, I'm throwing up blood. I need to go to treatment. I need to get help. They didn't let me have phones in my hotel rooms because they didn't want me to call room service. I didn't have food in my hotel room because they didn't want me to eat the snacks. They barricaded me into my hotel room. They put furniture outside of my door so that I couldn't get out.
This isn't just one person's story. It's a blueprint, a pattern of control, wrapped in glitter and sold to the public as the happiest place on earth. Consider Raven Simone, who was pressured into surgical procedures as a minor because executives didn't approve of her appearance.
I had 2 breast reductions in lipo before I turned 18.
Raven was a child, a successful child star bringing in millions for Disney Channel. And Disney's response to natural teenage body changes was to suggest she go under the knife multiple times before she was legally an adult. In the same interview, Raven revealed that the pressure wasn't subtle. There were conversations about my appearance constantly, she said. Not suggestions, expectations. When a 16-year-old girl is getting breast reduction surgery because her employers think she's too distracting, that's not show business. That's systematic abuse. Or consider Bella Thorne, who revealed she was essentially working to keep her family from becoming homeless.
When you got involved in the Disney funnel, was that a weird coincidence? Because I read somewhere you only did that because you were about to become homeless and you needed money.
We were, yes. Yep. We were, we were a very poor family growing up, and then we got money at one point, and then my mom got very sick, and my father, and all these other things happened. And
Disney didn't discover Bella Thorne despite her family's financial desperation. They discovered her because of it. Families in crisis make compliant employees. Children who know their family's survival depends on their paycheck don't cause problems. They don't ask questions. They don't say no. And they definitely don't speak up about what happens behind the scenes. Bella later revealed in podcast interviews that her Disney Channel contract included clauses about her appearance, her social media presence, her personal relationships, and even her family's media interactions. Disney wasn't just hiring a teenage actress, they were purchasing control of an entire family. Here's the thing that connects these child star horror stories to what happened to Jeremy Renner. The control mechanisms never went away. They just got more sophisticated. Disney learned they could accomplish with legal language what they used to accomplish with physical barriers. Why barricade someone in a hotel room when you can barricade them with contracts? For years, Marvel actors were tied down by what insiders refer to as the studio silence provision, a non-disparagement clause buried deep in their NDAs and promotional contracts. But the real kicker? The clause also included what lawyers call anticipatory penalties. Not only could you not speak negatively about Disney, you couldn't even threaten to speak negatively. Violation meant automatic financial penalties, reputation-based arbitration, and, get this, disqualification from residual payouts. If you complained, you lost money. Money you'd already earned. Money from films that had already made billions. The message was clear: stay silent or lose everything. But here's where Disney's legal machine may have underestimated the Avengers' star power. Those contracts, many of them expired in late 2023. The moment those dates hit, the silence ended. And that's why you're hearing so much all at once. December 31st, 2023 wasn't just New Year's Eve for many Marvel actors. It was Freedom Day. According to entertainment law sources, Disney had structured most of their major Marvel contracts to expire at the end of 2023, likely anticipating that they'd negotiate extensions with actors who'd want to continue their superhero careers. What they didn't anticipate was that many of these actors didn't want to continue. But this time, they had a plan to fight back. Elizabeth Olsen walks away, Scarlet Strikes Back, and The Fall of the Mouse. Elizabeth Olsen, Marvel's breakout star of WandaVision, the face of Phase 4, the heart of the MCU's future, walked away. Not quietly, not bitterly, but completely, and without looking back. And when she did, she allegedly handed her agent a letter to pass on to Disney executives. One line in particular, now confirmed by 2 separate insiders, read, "I gave you my face, my time, and my trust. I'm keeping my voice." With that, Marvel's Scarlet Witch became something else entirely, a symbol of the silent rebellion. Her departure wasn't just a career move. It was a declaration of independence that would inspire an entire generation of artists to reclaim their narratives. According to sources inside Disney, Olsen's departure triggered what one executive called a full-scale retention crisis review. Emergency meetings were called, retention bonuses were discussed, apology phone calls were made, but it was too late. Olsen had already signed with Amazon. The video was never meant to go public, but somewhere between the top-floor executives and the studio's legal division, it leaked, and not just to one outlet. 3 entertainment reporters, actors, 2 of them with Disney credentials, received an anonymous Google Drive link containing what's now being described in internal company emails as a coordinated reputational strike. The timing wasn't accidental. The leak happened exactly 24 hours after Olsen's letter was delivered, suggesting either remarkable coincidence or strategic coordination. The title of the file, Phase 5, What Comes After the Mouse. That's not a typo. It's a direct jab at Marvel's Phase 5, stylized with an S instead of a PH, a subtle nod to the word face, as in fake phase, or possibly the Spanish word for phase, suggesting a more global perspective on Disney's issues. After years of silence following her lawsuit victory against Disney over Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson has returned, not to the courtroom, but to the writer's room. Sources say she's co-developing a streaming miniseries called Prototype, a dark satire about a mega entertainment empire that builds its global brand on the backs of female-led franchises, only to replace them when they ask for equal pay. The series, according to early script leaks, follows Natasha Sterling, the character names aren't even subtle anymore, an action star who discovers that her studio has been systematically underpaying female leads while using their success to justify massive executive bonuses. And get this, one of the series' characters, nicknamed the Benefactor, reportedly resembles an unnamed studio head known for slashing budgets and smiling in press photos. Sources describe the character as Bob Iger if Bob Iger were a Bond villain. The casting for Prototype is already generating buzz, with Florence Pugh reportedly in talks to play Johansson's character's protege, a younger actress trying to avoid the same exploitation, which raises the question, has Disney lost control of its next generation too? Here's where Amazon flipped the script completely. Every star who signs on under Amazon's new media division reportedly agrees to a new clause nicknamed the Echo Mandate. Renner, Johansson, and Olsen allegedly refused to sign unless that clause was locked in across the board for every actor in the Amazon deal. They weren't just making new shows, they were building a new system. The Echo Mandate has already started rippling through Hollywood. Other studios are reportedly being forced to reconsider their own silence clauses as top talent begins demanding Amazon-style speech protections. Entertainment lawyers are calling it a watershed moment for talent rights. What Amazon did was essentially recognize that an actor's personal brand is inseparable from their professional value, said one prominent entertainment attorney. Disney tried to control both. Amazon is betting that freeing both will create better art and more loyal talent relationships. Amazon's strategy appears to be working. Since the Echo Mandate was implemented, they've reportedly signed 3 additional Marvel alumni, names being kept confidential until official announcements, 2 former Disney Channel stars interested in adult retelling projects, a prominent Disney voice actor developing an animated series about the psychology of character performance, and multiple behind-the-scenes Marvel personnel, including writers, directors, and producers. One source described it as the largest talent migration in modern Hollywood history. Following a wave of negative headlines, Disney's official statement read, "We respect the rights of artists to explore new creative avenues and thank them for their contributions to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Disney remains committed to fostering positive relationships with all talent and continues to create opportunities for creative collaboration." Translation: please don't sue us again, and please come back when Amazon stops returning your calls. But that statement hasn't stopped the bleeding. Internally, sources describe Disney as being in full damage control mode. Emergency meetings have been called to review all existing talent contracts. Retention bonuses are being offered to actors whose deals are expiring soon. And most telling, Disney has reportedly suspended enforcement of existing silence clauses while their legal team reviews potential vulnerabilities. Fans are organizing in ways that have stunned both Disney and Amazon. A new online petition, Free the Franchise, calls for independent audits of legacy studio contracts, with over 300,000 signatures and counting. Twitter is ablaze with hashtags like #MouseExodus, #EchoMandate4All, and #ArtistsOwnTheirStories. But the most powerful fan movement has been #WatchAmazonFirst, a coordinated effort to prioritize the new Amazon projects over Disney content. Early streaming data suggests the movement is working. Amazon's announcement videos for the new projects have collectively garnered over 50 million views, while Disney's recent Marvel announcements have struggled to break 10 million. What started as a few disgruntled actors has become a fundamental challenge to how Hollywood does business. Other streaming platforms are now actively recruiting Disney refugees. Netflix has reportedly created a specialized talent division focused on offering creative freedom to actors constrained by studio system contracts. HBO Max is developing a creator's bill of rights that guarantees certain creative and financial protections. Even traditional studios are adapting. Warner Brothers reportedly just signed a major action star to a contract that includes Amazon-style speech protections. Disney isn't going down without a fight. Sources inside the company suggest they're developing a talent retention and reacquisition strategy that includes, but industry experts believe Disney may have waited too long. When you build a system based on control and and then suddenly offer freedom, it looks like desperation, said one prominent talent manager. Amazon offered partnership from the beginning. Disney is offering partnership after exploitation. Those are very different value propositions. Here's the truth. Disney can still pump out content. It owns the IP, the names, the costumes, but the spirit of Marvel, the soul of what made these characters iconic, is leaving the building. Because when fans connect with a franchise, they're not connecting with logos, or studios, or streaming apps. They're connecting with people, and now those people are speaking, writing, creating, and they're doing it somewhere else. The next phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe might feature the same character names, but it won't feature the same character souls. Those souls are now creating new stories with new characters, under new terms. The Amazon slate is just beginning to take shape, and it's already turning heads. Mirrorland is set to premiere in fall 2025, with all 6 episodes dropping simultaneously in a bold move to dominate the streaming conversation. Prototype begins filming this summer for a 2026 release, while Echo Chamber is currently in pre-production with a planned debut in spring 2026. Meanwhile, Unsilenced is scheduled to premiere in early 2026, strategically timed to coincide with Disney's annual shareholders meeting. But that's not all. A rumored podcast hosted by Jeremy Renner and Scarlett Johansson is already in development, described by insiders as a frank, raw conversation series about surviving Hollywood's control mechanisms. Chris Evans is reportedly developing a directing project featuring multiple Amazon-signed actors, and Elizabeth Olsen has hinted at a Marvel alumni reunion special that would bring together actors from across the MCU, this time without Disney's script approval. This story is bigger than Marvel. It's bigger than Disney. It's about fundamental power dynamics in the entertainment industry. For decades, studios held all the cards. They owned the characters, controlled the narratives, and silenced the talent. Actors, even successful ones, were essentially highly paid employees with no job security and limited creative input. The Amazon deal represents something revolutionary: talent as creative partners rather than corporate assets. If this model succeeds, and early indicators suggest it will, it could reshape how the entire entertainment industry operates. But let's not lose sight of the human element in all this business analysis. These are real people who gave years of their lives to characters they loved, only to discover that their creative input was unwanted, their financial worth was negotiable, and their personal well-being was secondary to corporate profits. Jeremy Renner almost died and was offered a pay cut. Elizabeth Olsen created a beloved character and was told she was too emotional to understand it. Chris Evans became a global icon and felt like a mascot. Scarlett Johansson generated billions in revenue and had to sue to get her fair share. The exodus sends a clear message to Disney and every other studio: treat talent as partners or lose them as people. The age of corporate control over creative voices is ending. The age of artist-owned storytelling has begun, and the House of Mouse? It might just be turning into a haunted mansion filled with the ghosts of the talent it couldn't keep. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.
A full-scale rebellion is brewing behind the scenes at Marvel as stars declare war on Disney CEO Bob Iger. Jeremy Renner's explosive rejection of Disney's insult offer is just the beginning.
I'm like, wow, it's going to take me twice the amount of work for half the amount of money.
Meanwhile, other MCU stars are joining the revolution, publicly condemning Iger's leadership.
There's a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic.
The shocking secret meetings, career-ending threats, and the 3 A-list stars ready to walk away forever. This is the Marvel Civil War they don't want you to know about. The shocking revelation: Jeremy Renner's insulting offer. In early May 2025, during an interview with the High Performance app that was shared on TikTok, Renner made the jaw-dropping claim that Disney had offered him only half of his previous salary for a potential second season of the Disney Plus series Hawkeye. This revelation, documented across multiple entertainment news outlets including Hindustan Times, IndieWire, and People, came as a particular shock considering Renner's long-standing position as one of the original Avengers and his significant contribution to the Marvel Cinematic Universe over more than a decade. What makes the situation even more remarkable is the timing and context surrounding Disney's offer. As many of you will recall, Jeremy Renner suffered a near-fatal snowplow accident on New Year's Day 2023, resulting in over 35 broken bones and multiple titanium replacements. The actor endured a grueling rehabilitation journey, which he later detailed in his memoir, My Next Breath, released on April 29, 2024. It was against this backdrop of recovery and resilience that Renner claims Disney approached him with the reduced salary offer. In his own words during the High Performance interview, Renner expressed his disbelief at the proposal.
I'm like, I'm sorry. Why? Did you think I'm only half the Jeremy because I got ran over? Maybe that's why you want to pay me half?
The actor's pointed reference to his accident adds a particularly poignant dimension to this dispute, suggesting he felt the offer might have been connected to perceptions about his physical capabilities post-recovery. Adding insult to injury, according to Renner, this halved salary was proposed despite expectations for twice the amount of work and an 8-month time commitment for the second season. The stark contrast between increased workload and decreased compensation left the actor feeling that he had no choice but to decline the offer. It's worth noting that Renner was careful to distinguish between Disney's financial department and Marvel Studios in his criticism. This is not Marvel, mind you. This is like just Disney, not even really Disney. It's just the penny pinchers, the accountants, he clarified. This distinction suggests Renner's issue is specifically with the business side of operations, rather than the creative team with whom he's collaborated for years. The actor's response to the offer was unequivocal. He rejected it outright, telling Disney's financial team to go fly a kite, as he colorfully phrased it. Despite this strong stance, Renner emphasized that his love for the Hawkeye character remains unchanged. I still love the character. I'd still love to do it, but I had to defend myself. What makes this situation particularly interesting is that it's not an isolated incident. Industry observers have noted similar patterns with other actors. John Malkovich, who is set to appear in the Fantastic Four First Steps 2025, revealed he had previously turned down Marvel roles for years due to what he perceived as insufficient pay for the demanding nature of superhero productions. If you're going to hang from a crane in front of a green screen for 6 months, pay me, Malkovich stated, highlighting the physical and time demands these roles often entail. Additionally, reports have suggested that other actors like Hugo Weaving, who played Red Skull, and Carrie Coon have also walked away from Marvel roles over what they considered lowball offers, though specific details of these negotiations remain less public. To fully appreciate the context of Renner's situation, it's important to consider the typical compensation structure for MCU stars. Top earners like Robert Downey Jr. reportedly received around $75 million for Avengers Endgame, while Chris Hemsworth and Scarlett Johansson have commanded approximately $20 million per film in recent years. These figures have been widely reported in industry publications, creating a stark contrast with Renner's reported offer. For his part, Renner's MCU earnings have reportedly ranged from $3 million to $15 million for previous films, making the alleged pay cut for Hawkeye Season 2 all the more dramatic. While exact figures for his Season 1 compensation haven't been publicly disclosed, industry estimates suggest the proposed reduction would represent a significant financial step backward for the actor. This controversy has certainly caught the attention of fans, many of whom have expressed strong support for Renner on social media platforms. On X, formerly Twitter, posts expressing disappointment with Marvel's decision have gained significant traction. One notable comment urged, "Pay that man his money," while another user criticized Marvel directly, "Hey, at Marvel Studios, that's messed up, no? Maybe next time you can not insult one of your original and longest-lasting cast members in a time when you're not exactly lighting the world on fire." Particularly noteworthy is how fans have connected Renner's situation to his personal challenges following the accident. The sentiment that Disney should be more considerate given his recovery journey has resonated strongly within the fan community, with some expressing that the offer feels particularly callous in light of what the actor has endured. Some fans have even speculated about potential future negotiations, with one commenting, "After the reveal and Thunderbolts, and Haley using her new leverage after Hash Sinners, he'll get paid." This references Haley Steinfeld's rising star power following her success in projects outside the MCU, suggesting her increased leverage might indirectly benefit Renner in future discussions. Disney, for their part, has remained relatively quiet about the specific details of the negotiation. An unnamed Disney insider cited by IndieWire disputed Renner's claims, but notably failed to provide specific details to counter his statements. This lack of transparency has only fueled further speculation about the nature of the offer and Disney's approach to talent compensation more broadly. The situation raises important questions about how actors are valued in an era of expanding streaming content and changing business models. For a character like Hawkeye, who has been part of the MCU since nearly the beginning, fans might reasonably expect compensation to reflect that long-standing contribution to the franchise's success. Adding another layer to this already complex situation is Renner's potential involvement in future MCU projects beyond Hawkeye. Despite the salary dispute, there have been indications that Renner might return as Hawkeye in Avengers Doomsday, scheduled for release on May 1st, 2026. In an August 2024 interview, Renner hinted at his involvement, stating he is really excited and thinks he'll probably be doing it. This suggests that while the Hawkeye series negotiations have reached an impasse, doors remain open for Renner's return in other capacities. Production on Avengers Doomsday reportedly began in April 2025, with a cast including Chris Hemsworth as Thor, Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm Invisible Woman, and Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson Medicine, Captain America, among others. So what does the future hold for Hawkeye in the MCU if Jeremy Renner were to permanently step away? The most likely scenario would see Kate Bishop, played by Haley Steinfeld, continuing the Hawkeye legacy. The Hawkeye series already established her as Clint Barton's protege, creating a natural transition path. Marvel could focus on developing new storylines for Kate, possibly incorporating her into projects like Young Avengers, which has been rumored to be in development. Such a transition would align with Marvel's broader strategy of introducing younger heroes and passing mantles to new characters, as seen with Anthony Mackie taking over as Captain America from Chris Evans. However, Renner's departure would unquestionably represent a significant loss for the franchise, given his long tenure and the fan attachment to his portrayal. As we continue to monitor this developing story, it's clear that the relationship between major studios and their talent remains a delicate balance of creative partnership and business negotiation. A pattern emerges: Marvel's history of financial disputes with stars. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, which has generated unprecedented box office success over its nearly two-decade existence, has not been immune to behind-the-scenes financial conflicts. In fact, a careful examination of the franchise's history reveals that Jeremy Renner's situation, while certainly dramatic, follows a well-established pattern of salary disputes that have periodically threatened to disrupt the carefully constructed MCU narrative. Perhaps the most famous or infamous early example of such a dispute involved Terrence Howard, who portrayed James Rhodes, later War Machine, in the original Iron Man 2008. What many casual fans may not realize is that Howard was initially paid more than Robert Downey Jr. for the first film, a reflection of Howard's star power at the time, and the perceived risk associated with casting Downey, who was then in the process of rebuilding his career. However, following the unexpected mega success of Iron Man, Howard's compensation was significantly reduced for future projects, reportedly due to budget reallocations that favored increasing Downey's salary. This dramatic pay cut ultimately led to Howard's departure from the franchise, with Don Cheadle stepping in to take over the role of James Rhodes' War Machine for Iron Man 2 and all subsequent appearances. Howard has been vocal about his frustration with this situation over the years, making it clear that financial considerations played a major role in his exit from what would become one of cinema's most successful franchises. This early instance set a precedent that we would see repeated in various forms throughout the MCU's evolution. Another high-profile dispute that captivated industry attention involved Scarlett Johansson, who had been portraying Natasha Romanoff Black Widow since Iron Man 2. In July 2021, Johansson took the extraordinary step of filing a lawsuit against Disney, alleging breach of contract related to the release strategy for her solo film Black Widow. At the heart of Johansson's claim was the decision to release Black Widow simultaneously in theaters and on Disney Plus Premier Access during the COVID-19 pandemic. The actress alleged this dual release strategy reduced box office revenue, which directly impacted her back-end compensation package that was tied to theatrical performance. Reports suggested Johansson sought approximately $80 million in damages on top of her $20 million base salary for the film. The dispute was ultimately settled in October 2021, with the terms undisclosed but estimated by industry insiders to exceed $40 million. While the specific circumstances of Johansson's case differ from Renner's current situation, both illustrate the ongoing tension between talent compensation and evolving business models in the entertainment industry, particularly as streaming has disrupted traditional revenue streams. Perhaps the most directly comparable precedent to the current Renner situation occurred following the monumental success of The Avengers 2012, which grossed over $1.5 billion worldwide and cemented the MCU as a box office juggernaut. Reports from 2013 indicated that several key Avengers actors, including Chris Hemsworth, Thor, and Chris Evans, Captain America, found themselves in contentious negotiations with Marvel over compensation for future appearances. These actors had signed what were later characterized as ungenerous contracts early in the MCU's development, before its financial success was assured. As the franchise grew exponentially in value, negotiations became increasingly tense. Marvel reportedly offered to triple Chris Hemsworth's contract, though they were not contractually obligated to do so in recognition of his growing importance to the franchise. Robert Downey Jr., who had shrewdly negotiated a percentage of profits rather than just a flat fee for his later appearances, leveraged his position as the MCU's center of gravity to secure increasingly substantial deals, reportedly earning around $75 million for Avengers Endgame, a far cry from the $500,000 he reportedly received for the first Iron Man film. Marvel. These historical disputes highlight a recurring pattern in Marvel's approach to talent compensation. Initial contracts tend to favor the studio, with renegotiations becoming necessary as the franchise's success grows and actors gain leverage. The frequency of these disputes suggests a systematic approach to talent management that prioritizes controlling costs even as the overall franchise generates extraordinary revenues. But financial tensions within the MCU extend beyond just the major stars. Recent controversies have involved actors who, while not headlining their own films, have played crucial supporting roles in the franchise. For instance, reports emerged in 2025 that Carrie Coon had declined to return to the MCU over a salary dispute, though specific details remained private. Similarly, Hugo Weaving, who memorably portrayed the Red Skull in Captain America: The First Avenger, did not return for subsequent appearances, with financial considerations reportedly playing a role in that decision. The situation becomes even more complex when examining how Marvel's strategy has evolved in more recent phases of the MCU. Industry reports suggest that for Phase 4 and beyond, Marvel aimed to decrease tentpole actor salaries, part of a broader strategy emphasizing character brands rather than star power. This approach reportedly resulted in lower salaries for actors like Salma Hayek, Angelina Jolie, and Richard Madden compared to what earlier MCU stars had commanded at similar points in their tenure. This strategic shift appears to reflect Disney's growing confidence in the Marvel brand itself, rather than the individual actors portraying the characters. While this might make financial sense from a corporate perspective, it risks alienating the very talents who bring these beloved characters to life, as we've seen with Renner's public rebuke of what he perceived as an inadequate offer. The disparity in compensation among MCU actors has also drawn increasing attention from fans and industry observers. For example, while Robert Downey Jr. earned approximately $75 million for Avengers Endgame, Chris Evans reportedly made around $20 million, and Chadwick Boseman earned approximately $2 million for Black Panther, a film that grossed over $1.3 billion worldwide. These significant gaps raise questions about equity and compensation, particularly when considering factors such as screen time, character importance, and contribution to the franchise's overall success. It's worth noting that some MCU actors have publicly acknowledged the complex nature of these negotiations without expressing outright dissatisfaction. Benedict Cumberbatch, who portrays Doctor Strange, has spoken about the business aspects of joining such a massive franchise while maintaining that he feels fairly compensated. Similarly, Paul Bettany, Vision, has discussed the evolution of his contract from a voice role as Jarvis to a full character with increased compensation, illustrating the potential for positive growth within the system. However, as evidenced by Jeremy Renner's recent statements, not all actors feel that their compensation has evolved appropriately with their contribution to the franchise. His rejection of what he described as an insult offer for Hawkeye Season 2 suggests that despite Disney's immense resources, there remains a tension between maximizing profitability and ensuring talent feels valued appropriately. This tension becomes particularly pronounced when considering the overall financial success of the MCU. As of 2025, the franchise has generated over $30 billion in global box office revenue, not including merchandise sales, theme park attractions, and the substantial value added to Disney's streaming platform. Against this backdrop of extraordinary financial success, offers that actors perceive as inadequate can appear particularly egregious. But financial disputes aren't the only area where Disney and its Marvel stars have found themselves at odds. In recent years, several MCU actors have publicly expressed disagreement with Disney CEO Bob Iger on various issues, from labor disputes to creative decisions. These conflicts add another dimension to the complex relationship between the studio and its talent roster. One notable example is Tatiana Maslany, who portrayed She-Hulk in the Disney Plus series of the same name. During the 2023 writers and actors strikes, Maslany criticized Iger as being completely out of touch with the workers who create Disney's content. She particularly highlighted the wealth disparity, pointing out that Disney's prosperity was not adequately shared with crew, cast, and writers. Her comments were part of a broader industry backlash against Iger's statements during the labor disputes, which many perceived as dismissive of striking workers' concerns. Similarly, Sean Gunn, who plays Kraglin and serves as the on-set reference for Rocket in the Guardians of the Galaxy films, publicly criticized Iger's remarks during the strikes. Speaking from the picket lines, Gunn directly addressed the massive pay disparity within Disney, stating, "I think when Bob Iger talks about what a shame it is, he needs to remember that in the 1980s, CEOs like him made 30 times more than what the lowest worker was making. Now Bob Iger makes 400 times what his lowest worker is, and I think that's a Gee, shame, Bob. Even Iman Vellani, star of The Marvels, has indirectly expressed disagreement with Iger. When asked about her film's disappointing box office performance, Vellani shifted responsibility to the CEO, stating simply, "That's for Bob Iger," and emphasizing that the results had nothing to do with me. While less confrontational than the comments from Maslany or Gunn, Vellani's statement nonetheless reflected a willingness to publicly distance herself from corporate disappointments and place accountability at the executive level. These examples demonstrate that financial disputes like Renner's exist within a broader context of tensions between Disney leadership and Marvel talent. The relationship between the studio and its stars appears increasingly strained across multiple dimensions, from compensation to broader industry issues like labor rights and creative direction. Perhaps most tellingly, even Bob Iger himself has acknowledged shortcomings in Marvel's recent trajectory. The bigger picture: Disney CEO Bob Iger and the future of the MCU. Bob Iger, who returned as Disney's CEO in November 2022 after previously serving from 2005 to 2020, has been a transformative figure in the company's history. Under his initial tenure, Disney acquired Pixar 2006, Marvel Entertainment 2009, Lucasfilm 2012, and 21st Century Fox 2019, dramatically expanding the company's intellectual property portfolio and establishing its dominant position in the entertainment industry. Since his return in late 2022, Iger has focused on reorganizing Disney into three branches: Disney Entertainment, Parks, Experiences, and Products, and ESPN. His leadership has been particularly focused on transforming Disney's streaming business and restoring creativity at the company's core goals that directly impact Marvel Studios' operations and output. However, Iger's leadership style and public comments have occasionally put him at odds with talent, particularly during periods of industry unrest. A prime example of this tension emerged during the 2023 Writers Guild of America (WGA) and Screen Actors Guild American Federation of Television and Radio Artists (SAG-AFTRA) strikes, when Iger made comments that many industry professionals, including Marvel stars, found dismissive of legitimate concerns. In a particularly notable interview, Iger described the strikes as very disturbing and characterized the expectations of writers and actors as just not realistic. Let's examine his exact words.
Speaking of content, we're in the midst of a writer's strike, and very likely it would seem to have a actor's strike. How is that going to impact things, and what are your expectations there?
Well, I think it's very disturbing to me. We've talked about disruptive forces on this business and all the challenges we're facing, and the recovery from COVID, which is ongoing. It's not completely back. This is the worst time in the world to add to that disruption.
And when directly asked if the writers and actors were not being realistic, Iger responded affirmatively.
So they're not being realistic?
No, they're not.
Why not?
I can't answer that question. I respect their right and their desire to get as much as they possibly can in compensation for their people. I completely respect that. I've been around long enough to understand that dynamic and to appreciate it. But you also have to be realistic about the business environment and what this business can deliver.
These comments sparked immediate backlash from many in the entertainment industry, including several Marvel stars. As mentioned earlier, Tatiana Maslany, who portrays She-Hulk, criticized Iger as completely out of touch with the workers who create Disney's content, while Sean Gunn highlighted the 400-to-1 pay disparity between Iger and Disney's lowest-paid workers. The strikes eventually concluded with new agreements that addressed many of the union's concerns, including protections against AI usage and improved streaming residuals. However, Iger's comments during this period created lasting tension between Disney leadership and the creative community, including many Marvel actors who participated in the strikes. This backdrop of labor disputes provides important context for understanding Jeremy Renner's salary negotiation. While Renner's situation predates the 2023 strikes, it reflects similar concerns about fair compensation in an evolving entertainment, a landscape. Renner specifically pointed to Disney's penny pinchers rather than Marvel Studios as the source of his frustration, suggesting that financial decisions at the corporate level are creating friction with talent. Beyond labor disputes, Iger has also made comments about Marvel's content strategy that have raised eyebrows among fans and industry observers. In December 2023, he suggested that the substance of MCU stories was partly to blame for box office struggles, particularly emphasizing what he perceived as too much focus on messages rather than entertainment. These comments drew criticism from creative figures like Peter Ramsey, co-director of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, who defended the Marvels against Iger's implications. Fan discussions on platforms like Reddit also pushed back against Iger's framing, with many arguing that quality storytelling rather than ideological messaging was the primary concern for audiences. More recently, in February 2024, Iger outlined a plan to focus on larger MCU franchises as a strategy to save the superhero superhero universe, indicating a potential shift toward more established characters and properties. This direction might have implications for newer characters and more experimental projects, potentially affecting the MCU's diversity of storytelling. Against this backdrop of strategic shifts and public statements, Disney's offer to Jeremy Renner takes on additional significance. Offering half the previous salary to an original Avenger could be interpreted as part of a broader strategy to reduce talent costs, particularly for Disney Plus productions. If true, this would align with reports that Marvel has been aiming to decrease tentpole actor salaries in Phase 4 and beyond. But while cost control might make sense from a pure business perspective, it risks alienating the very talent that has made the MCU successful. Fan reactions to Renner's revelation have been overwhelmingly supportive of the actor, with many expressing disappointment in Disney's approach. Comments on social media posts reporting the dispute show strong sentiment in Renner's favor, with users urging Disney to pay that man his money and criticizing the studio for what they perceive as disrespect toward an original Avenger. The timing of the offer is particularly notable given Renner's recovery from his near-fatal accident. Many fans have pointed out that offering a reduced salary to an actor who has endured significant physical trauma seems especially tone-deaf. As one ex-user commented, disappointing that Disney won't pay an OG Avenger to return, especially after what he's gone through to get back to acting. This brings us to the crucial question: what could these disputes mean for the future of the MCU? Several potential impacts are worth considering. First, there's the immediate question of Hawkeye's future in the franchise. If Jeremy Renner permanently steps away due to compensation disagreements, the most likely scenario would see Kate Bishop, Haley Steinfeld, continuing the Hawkeye legacy. The Disney Plus series already established her as Clint Barton's protege, creating a natural transition. Marvel could focus on developing new storylines for Kate, possibly incorporating her into projects like Young Avengers, which has been rumored to be in development. Such a transition would align with Marvel's broader strategy of introducing younger heroes and passing mantles to new characters, as seen with Anthony Mackie taking over as Captain America from Chris Evans. However, Renner's departure would unquestionably represent a significant loss for the franchise, given his long tenure and the fan attachment to his portrayal. If Renner were to leave, Marvel would miss his experience and depth as an actor who has portrayed Hawkeye for over a decade. His depiction of Clint Barton as a relatable, grounded hero with a family life has added valuable contrast to the more fantastical elements of the MCU. Additionally, his established chemistry with other Avengers actors has contributed significantly to the ensemble dynamic that has been central to the franchise's success. However, there are indications that despite the Hawkeye series dispute, Renner may still be involved in other MCU projects. As mentioned earlier, he has hinted at appearing in Avengers Doomsday, scheduled for release on May 1st, 2026. This suggests that while television negotiations have reached an impasse, his character might continue to appear in theatrical releases. Beyond the specific issue of Hawkeye's future, these disputes highlight broader challenges facing the MCU as it navigates its second decade. The franchise is currently in a period of transition, with many original stars having departed or taking on reduced roles. This creates a delicate balance between honoring legacy characters and establishing new ones, a balance that could be disrupted by contentious salary negotiations with veteran actors. For more content like this, click on the videos showing on your screen now.